The Fragments of Love, Chapter 5, New York, New York, a story by Sammy Kay. Marcus Calumet, alone in New York. The city is thick with raw emotions. The grief for the innocent lives lost is the first emotion visible on almost every face that you see. Shock is a very close second. We live in the great United States of America. This type of tragedy is simply not supposed to happen in this country to our people. The fact that this has indeed happened has opened the door to the unspoken feelings of fear. This is the type of fear that crosses all lines of diversity. The question becomes, will this event draw us closer or pull us apart? Thankfully, I was too busy during the first week to focus on the state of my marriage. We worked 12-hour shifts, and by the time my head hit the pillow, I was knocked out. By the second week, my body had more or less adjusted to the schedule. Suddenly, neither my mind nor my body were adjusting to being away from my wife. I was waking up several times during the night, reaching out and touching an empty space. She emailed 3 times during the first week. I at least know that she's okay. But I hung up the phone feeling sad. My feelings were similar during our lovemaking on the morning I left for New York. The passion was almost bittersweet. I decided not to go home on weekends. I had no desire to go home to an empty house. My mother and the kids were checking on the house, so I knew everything was fine there. Our 2 dogs were vacationing with my mother. They would both need to be placed on a diet by the time we returned home. My mother loves animals, especially dogs, and they would probably move in with her if they could make that happen. That thought makes me smile. I need to smile. My team is made up of 6 men ranging in ages from 32 to 52. 4 of the men are married, and neither of the remaining 2 have ever been married. We are an interesting bunch by any account. In private, we refer to ourselves as the dudes of diversity. Yeah, corny, but effective. There are 2 Caucasians, 1 Hispanic American, 1 Asian American, 1 Jewish American, and 1 African American. 4 of us have worked together for the last 15 years. I handpicked these men because I wanted the wealth of knowledge and insight our differences could collectively utilize. It has worked because we have proven our respect and trust for each other many times over. I must admit that for the most part, my team is using this little time from home to unwind. I have never been a party animal, and this would not be a great time to start. I just might enjoy it. However, I did rent a flick a couple of nights ago, but I fell asleep within the first 10 minutes, so perhaps I am safe. I realized what I really needed was some real comfort. I decided to use this much needed time to study my Bible, reflect, and pray about my marriage and my life. I love God with all of my being, but I am guilty of pushing the study of His Word to the bottom of my list of what is important. I will use what is a very sad time for me to glorify my Father. But isn't that what we always do? I called Vanessa on her way home. Her voice was distant. She is obviously still in the same place she was before her trip. I just found out that we will stay in New York for an extra week. The Fragments of Love, Chapter 6. Is that my face in the mirror? A story by Sammy Kay. Vanessa Calumet arrives home. Time seemed to stop. I cried until all of my tears were gone. Did I feel better? No, I actually felt worse. I left my luggage in my car and slowly walked to the door leading into my custom designed kitchen. Oddly, I remembered to leave my shoes in the adjacent mudroom. I also remember my mother's response when I told her this area was a mud room. She had shaken her head and wondered aloud why anyone would take the time to officially name any space a mud room. I carefully explained to her that it was a place to leave anything that you did not want to bring dirt and clutter into your house. She simply gave me her trademark patient and slightly amused look before just as carefully stating that it just seemed to be a way to bring the back porch into the house. Same concept. Keep the dirty stuff separate from the clean. With her words in mind, I did not feel that I deserved to enter my home. My beautiful home that was built with love and care. This home is a perfect combination of each member of my family. Each person's view and personality can be seen throughout the entire space. Both of our grown children and our grandchildren have permanent rooms in this house. Downsizing has never crossed any of our minds. This will always be home, our home, that I have now defiled. This cold reality brought me to my knees. As I stretched my prone body on the kitchen floor, I once again thought about dying. But I did not die. By the time I pulled myself up from the floor, my body was stiff and sore. I left the kitchen and went into the family room. I stopped and looked around the room that was filled with the presence of my beloved family. Every picture, every memento simply added to my pain. My heart was literally filled with burning pain. I forced myself to run up the stairs, but of course, I could not run away from myself. I remember going up the stairs and hearing noises behind me, or so I thought. I realized that what I heard were the garbage trucks outside, but I felt like my dirt was chasing me. Before I opened the door to our suite, I tried in vain to pray. I took a deep breath and walked into the room that has always been my safe haven. A room where our love was free to be expressed in any manner we chose. A room where our dreams and fears were shared with the trust that comes from genuine, unconditional love. As I struggled to breathe, I wondered if this room would soon become my personal hell. I fell across the bed and cried myself to a fretful sleep. The loud ring of the landline jarred me awake. It was my mother. I answered with an exaggerated sleep-filled voice, and my mother quickly told me to go back to sleep. She was just checking on me. I decided to call Marcus with that same voice so he would not be worried about me. It did not escape me that now, I was concerned about his feelings. Lord, am I going crazy? Is that what my mother was trying to tell me? I thought she was over exaggerating whatever other woman in my age group talks about the hot flashes and the night sweats and the mood changes. Those things haven't really bothered me. But this new person that I've become, or is it a new person? Has she always been there and now she's out? Is she going to stay? Can I put her back where she was? I just don't know. The next day, Marcus called to tell me that he would be in New York for at least a week longer than expected, and they were unable to come home. I missed my husband deeply, but I saw the longer stay is a blessing directly from God. Whether it was a blessing for Marcus or me did not matter right now. The extra time would allow the bite marks to heal, hopefully. The next morning, I was surprised to wake up with an uncomfortable burning sensation in and around my vagina. I used a mirror to have a closer look, but other than the now angry looking bruises, I saw nothing else that was odd. By midday, I had a nasty discharge. I was stunned. I am 58 years old. This is just not happening to me. I made a frantic call to my doctor. He is also a close friend. I was literally numb as I took an almost scalding hot bath. Once again, I tried to pray. Once again, it was in vain. Instead, I cried until I reached the parking lot. Before the examination, I told my friend everything. She tried to comfort me, but to no avail. I mean, what could she say? I mean, really. I could never have imagined the type of shame I felt as I placed my legs in the stirrups. After the exam and I was back in the doctor's office, I did my best to make my mind a total blank. There was an on site lab, and since my friend wanted to get the results quickly, she walked the samples downstairs. After what seemed like days, my doctor returned. With a very sad and regretful look, she informed me that as she suspected, I have chlamydia. She also informed me that she was giving me a tetanus shot as a precaution regarding the bite marks. I was speechless. Speechless. There just were no words. She also told me to thank God because this man was obviously a sick bastard. He knew I was married. He chose to brand me in his own special way. Brand me? Merciful heaven. She explained that for some men, this is a show of demented power. They choose cruises because the time and space is a pretty much controlled environment. A woman alone is the perfect target, whether she is a willing participant or not. The fact that she is alone is often a green flag, a signal that she just might be vulnerable enough for their game. Because for them, it is a game. She finished by saying that my bruises will heal and the STD can be treated. He just as easily could have drugged and robbed and thrown me overboard. I mean, really? Did I put myself in that position? My dear friend cried with me before I left her office. She insisted I come back to her office next week for a follow-up and to have a long overdue talk about my hormones. Yes, yes, I know. But can I blame this on my hormones? I just don't know. I stopped and had the prescription filled, and yes, I was embarrassed. I could just imagine the entire staff looking with horror and amusement at the elderly woman with, I didn't even want to think about the word. I went home and thought about every choice I had made during the last year of my life. I no longer had the luxury of tears or dramatic thoughts of dying. That would be much too easy. It was time for me to face the person in the mirror. Finally, after all this time, I was able to get on my knees and pray.